I want to start by asking you about the banking crisis, particularly with China's AT1 bond issuers. China, in fact, are among the largest, and of course that market just completely jolted when Credit Suisse holders of those bonds were wiped out. And that's what can happen. That's what you sign up for. What does this mean much for China's financial sector, for investors? Is it something that is just going to kind of come and go once all these things get worked out and this matter is settled?
Yeah, well, I think now the problem is being perceived as a European and U.S. specific problem. So as a result, even though the Chinese banks, are the largest AT1 bond issuers, and also, initially across the board, all AT1 bond issuers were hit really badly. But I think now it's largely stabilized. And also, over the course of this week, the banks are going to release their full-year result, and which is supposed to be a low single-digit growth for last year. So I think overall, that's the reason why the Chinese banks are faring so much better than the European counterparts.
Okay, so it doesn't seem like it's that big of an issue, but the property market certainly is, and you're concerned. One thing you're watching very closely in your call for the recovery will continue, China's going to do well, is what happens to the property sector.
Yeah, I think that's the biggest overhang for the Chinese economy. Because last week, last year, the Chinese property sector, has been hit hard, really bad. I think sales was down like more than 1/3 for the year, and also property investment was down like more than 1/5 for the year. So I think everyone is looking at the property sector and see how it performed. After all, it's such a big part of the Chinese economy. I think for the first 2 months of this year, sales results has been quite encouraging, especially in the secondary market. But we all know that the secondary market doesn't really contribute to GDP growth. But then at the same time, it really shows some sort of a recovery in confidence in the home sector. So, we're waiting to see further results, on the new home sales, to see like how sustainable is the recovery is, and therefore, we can draw further conclusion for the Chinese economy this year.
We talk about the need to wait to see if there's more of a steady footing in this recovery. What if this is as good as it gets? Could this be the new normal when it comes to Chinese growth?
Yeah, I think if you look at the lending figure, so the mid to long-term home loan, the mid to long-term household borrowing hasn't been increasing. I think most of the lending has been concentrated in the state-owned sectors. So I think the mid to long-term borrowing by the households tend to be like mortgages, and it is really showing that people are not buying as much new first-hand property as before. But then at the same time, the industrial activities, IPs, and also PMI leading indicators are trending up. So it remains to be seen. I think it's too soon to draw any conclusion, but I think my base case is for a economic recovery for this year.